LBR LBO Infrastructure Summit 2015, making Colombo a globally competitive city.
Lakshman, I must say you have given me a great challenge to beat Stockholm. So I'm going to make some suggestions without playing cards, so that we can certainly beat Stockholm next time we meet. May I start by reminding and recalling all of us here that the urban sector in Sri Lanka was for a long time, and even till recent times, considered parasitic. They were mostly understood as being parasitic on the rural economy and sometimes on the national economy as well. And that continued for many of these plans that the Honorable Minister mentioned in background. It continued to, in fact, depress the opportunity for the urban sector to make an impact in the country. Now, the time has come where the government has decided, for reasons that was mentioned in the Minister's speech, to create the transformation of the urban sector from what it was to what it can be. And the means by which the biggest impact is going to be done is the megapolis development that is underway. Now, if megapolis that Colombo is talking about is going to be competitive globally, that's an even bigger challenge. It's not just developing the urban sector from the parasitic state to a modern economy, but also to make it globally competitive. That puts a huge challenge. In that, we must also recognize that competitiveness is understood commonly across the globe, and there are many publications that I'm sure LBR LBO would give into, that has set out the so-called themes, the thematic factors which make a city competitive and also compete across the board in the world. One of those is, in fact, the topic that we are talking about today, infrastructure. Infrastructure here means the physical infrastructure: road, rail, transport, airports, seaports, harbors, water supply, sanitation, solid waste management, electricity, telecommunication, and of course the digital infrastructure that we now talk about. Now, these provision of these in the right way is critical in the megapolis. Now, if we are to do that, the first starting point is that we must have the vehicle to deliver them. And fortunately, in Sri Lanka, we have a compact which for the first time is under one ministry, the Honorable Minister's ministry, what we call the National Physical Planning Department. Very obsolete department in the public mind, extremely powerful. The Urban Development Authority, another institution that was created in 1978, extremely powerful law, built-in statute. The public interaction with it is because of its regulatory powers, but we have that institution as well. And now we have the Megapolis Secretariat, which I am sure is a precursor to a Megapolis Authority that will be formed. So we have a delivery mechanism. We have these agencies as the delivery vehicle for promoting urban development: the National Physical Plan Department, the Urban Development Authority, and the Megapolis Secretariat. Now, all these institutions, I am sure, are under some legal framework, and the National Physical Planning Department is generated in 1346 and amended in 49/2000. I hope, Lakshman, you will make available copies of these for the public generally too in their website, because they have extremely strong powers. The UDA 41 of 1978, amended in 4 of 82, extremely powerful again. Megapolis Secretariat, I'm sure Honorable Minister is proposing the laws in due course. And these legislative frameworks will give the background to the opportunities that can be made known for the public in the megapolis area. Now, one of the problems when you have multiple agencies is that their harmonization is also equally important. And the first thing that was understood in the year 2000 was that the UDA may be overriding the National Physical Planning Department, which was mainly intended to frame a national physical planning policy. Its approval process includes the entire cabinet. I don't know what amendments are now going to happen, but it involves the entire cabinet chaired by the President himself, and they approve what is called the National Physical Planning Policy. I have not included the National Physical Plan draft that is now ongoing in the slides, but I think that shows where the major strategic land uses are going to take place. The UDA law is amended in 2000 to suggest that UDA must conform to this National Physical Planning Policy. Now, the relationship between the Megapolis Authority and these two is still unknown, and I am sure these will be resolved in due course. Now, between these, we have also the megapolis itself being planned, but as everybody is aware, in between the megapolis itself, there are local authorities that are involved. And I'm sure the previous speaker mentioned the importance of local authorities being also beneficiaries of the megapolis development and maybe around the country as well. Now, at the moment, the central control of the local authorities, both in planning and in taxes, are hugely restraining, and the benefits that the local authorities might feel as an incentive to participate in megapolis development needs to be addressed if we are going to be competitive, as was mentioned by the previous speaker, in Stockholm. So if we are to beat them, we have to have some parallel with that. The third one is, of course, where these megapolis boundaries are going to be. Western Province certainly is mentioned. Now, we don't have details accessible to us at the moment, but I'm sure tomorrow Professor Manam is going to mention the details. But we understand from the media reports that there will be three cities: aviation city around Katunayaka, port city, not the Colombo port city that we have already in place, but the concept of a port city going in the Mutwal Colombo direction, and the technological city between Malabe and Homagama. So we have three groupings in this so-called megapolis, and I'm sure it's a schematic presentation, but the details will be known tomorrow proper. Now, the important thing in this is that the megapolis includes several other cities in between its bounds, and therefore we have to define this boundary. And if we have to define the boundary, it's important that we, I'm sure the team that the Honorable Minister has also provided, there are many types of agglomerations when you team settlements. We have the continuous urban agglomerations, the so-called network agglomerations, and I'm sure that's what's going to be. Now, why I introduced this theoretical component in this is these types of urban agglomerations have their own synergies, and experiences and theories have shown what they should be. So if we are going to have an urban agglomeration in the megapolis, we certainly must choose one of these or fall into one of these, and its theories need to be addressed, and I hope the Megapolis Authority will exercise that option. One more point that I want to make is smart cities in the megapolis require smart planners. And the unfortunate thing that we see already happening in Sri Lanka is that despite the university, which I represent in terms of participation, is the only exclusive provider of planning education. All the urban planning graduates are in various disciplines, various kinds of occupations. None of the local authorities are engaged in them. And if that continues in the megapolis authority, we are going to have a crisis. So smart planning, smart cities, they go hand in hand. And I would suggest that it be addressed. My last point, Mr. Chairman, is that we need to also see a harmony between the infrastructure plans and the urban plans. Now, unfortunately, the infrastructure agencies and their plans take place standalone, and they have consultations, no doubt, but they take place standalone, and there is no mandate for them to follow the so-called National Physical Plan nor the other plans. Now, we know the crisis in that is that we have making and breaking concept. That is, you make the infrastructure and then the development comes and you break the roads again and then start. So there has to be a method by which this coordination can take place. And my suggestion is that like in some other countries, we have infrastructure commission to provide data sharing and the so-called coordination. Maybe the Public Utilities Commission, which Ron is familiar about, can also be suitably amended to provide this. So we have all the elements in place, no doubt, in the Sri Lankan Colombo City concept to provide the competitiveness. I'm not going into the design characteristics because tomorrow there's going to be a presentation by Professor Manam on this. So if that is to take place, I'm sure our good friend from Stockholm is going to have a tough time. Thank you.
LBR LBO Infrastructure Summit 2015, making Colombo a globally competitive city.